uh, are you part of the decision, the guys who decide which
No,
campaign? No.
I'm a
You're a recipient.
yeah,
You're
I'm
a recipient of the award. Okay.
Yes, yes.
So the people who are in the boulevard should not be involved, of course, in any of the agencies or.
We have, for instance, the chairman of Macan for the region, Emily, is involved, but when it comes to work that Macan is involved, she cannot be a judge. So
Okay.
she steps back. And this happens to any of the judges that are involved and have been asked to be a judge. And maybe Jerry can add more to this.
Right. The Board of Judges is composed mainly of CEOs and senior executives of agencies as well as client companies. This year, for instance, well, JJ is the chairman. Then we have Minyong Ordonez, who is chairman emeritus of Publicis. We have Emily Abrera, who's chairman of McCann Erickson Asia Pacific, is it? Yeah. We have Mon Jimenez is in the board of advisors, who is was the co-CEO of Jimenez Publicis, Publicis Jimenez Basic for many years, and now they put up their own consulting firm. Of course, Abby Jimenez, who was his co-CEO. We have Mariles Gustilo, CEO of Low, Chiki Lara, CEO of Young and Rubicam, March Ventosa,
Say the least.
you know, etc.
The
list goes on.
Let's not forget Jimmy Puno.
Jimmy Puno was
right.
former
Wow,
chairman,
yeah.
CEO of Young and Rubicam.
And
Yeah.
how long does it take you to evaluate which campaign should be awarded?
So there is usually a deadline for submission of entries, and after that we give the judges about 3 weeks.
Weeks,
We get them together for a briefing. We give them copies of the cases. We give them 3 weeks to go over them, and we meet again. They all meet together after 3 weeks, and that's when they do the rankings.
I have a very important question. Okay. You make money out of this? We'll answer that later.
Did you know that smiling makes you look younger? Why? Because there are more muscles that move down when you frown than when you move up. So, keep on smiling.
Are you still smiling? Question. Do you make money? Okay.
Good question.
Good question. All right.
Good
Okay.
question. What we do is we need money. We need more sponsors. Thank you very much for bringing it up. Maybe some kind soul out there will see the value of this and try to help us out.
Fantastic.
Yes,
Maybe someday, I mean, companies, the advertising agencies, and all the others could probably contribute a little something on, to make this really an ongoing thing. I mean, I really think we need something like this. I mean, it's not just, all values. It's not all the artistic. I mean, if you put these two things together, that's what's going to work. You want sponsors? Sponsors. Sponsors.
Very good.
Okay. So, you guys in the board and the judges, I mean, you do it for the love of it, right?
Well, we're doing it because we feel that, let's face it, our society needs it
Yes.
badly, and we have to really get our society to get out of the doldrums that we sometimes find ourselves in.
That's a creative solution, all right? I mean, you can't get away from commerce. How do you integrate it such a way that it also helps, better human beings? Formula. Is there a formula to come up with an effective marketing campaign? Formula?
Maybe Nandi can take it on first.
Well, there would be different schools of thought on that. Personally, I don't think there is a formula because every time we create, this might sound corny, but every time we create a campaign, I mean, there's got to be a certain amount of magic that goes into it, I mean, the fundamentals are there, of course. I mean, we are, advertising is a professional industry, marketing, is likewise a professional industry that has very clear targets, metrics, and all that. But at the same time, creativity requires, that magical spark and that extra ingredient that unfortunately, I don't think anybody has been able to measure, quantify, or put in a formula.
While you were talking, I saw that partly it's spirit, the spirit probably of the agency. I mean, to do a good marketing campaign with social values, you must believe in it. The people who do it must believe in it somehow. It must, filter down the line. Isn't that a formula? Put the spirit in place?
Well, it's not a formula. I think it comes from, number one, a very deep understanding of the consumer you're talking to, the person you're talking to, so that you know how exactly to connect with them and how to make your brand connect with that person. And it starts with that. Now, I don't think people are formulas. People's values are not formulas. I mean, the way they feel and think are not formulas, So
I think you just don't want to reveal. Advertising
You know what? I'd be the
agencies.
richest man in the world if I had that secret formula that would just do it all the time.
Well, you're doing it. You're doing it. What about Jerry? What do you think about formulas?
Yeah, I agree with Nandi. Absolutely none. I mean, as he said, there are basic metrics. Okay, certain things you have to do, right? But earlier you had a question on this thing of integration. Because of all these campaigns. Well, you see integration. If at all, you look at integration in terms of consumers, right? Today. Wow, there's, when you create a campaign, you don't just look at consumers per se, but you look at your various stakeholders. And then you look at integration of media, the tools that you use. Then you look at integration of messages, right? Because precisely they are. So these are not exactly formulas, but I guess these are things that you sort of have to work with, look at a little bit, but there's a lot of room for creativity. But these are basic things you have to sort of, begin with. Right?
Very, very challenging. Can you imagine putting all of those things together, considering
right.
all the stakeholders?
Right.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
It really needs a lot of brains.
Right.
Let's talk about joys. Okay, joys and frustrations from people who develop these campaigns. JJ, you've been there. What are the joys and frustrations in developing such a campaign and selling it to your clients?
I think if you had 3 hours and 4 minutes,
Okay.
I may be able to just sort of start the very scratching the very top.
Now, how
But
about the
really,
beginning and the ending only?
the beginning and the ending, it's a great joy. But then you're just as good as the last campaign you created, because the client looks at you tomorrow and says, "What do you have for me today?" So it's on a today basis. But let's face it, they do work with the reputation that you've built. They do work on the fact that you are telling them the truth and that credibility when you speak, and you're able to convince them precisely. So you bring a lot of weight with the experience that you have actually accumulated. So they're really buying it on faith as well.
Haven't you had experience where you had to present something and here you're talking about values and they're not into values. I'm like, come on, bottom line. Okay. What's your experience?
Well, I think, yes. I mean, there will be times that the ideas you put on the table are not exact. I mean, people will not buy all the ideas you put on the table, So, but I think, a good agency will always go back and pitch more ideas to the client, until you are able to convince them, about what you think, the way to go is, So, that's part of the frustration, and at the same time, also the joy, because once you get it in, number one, and you convince them, then that's half of it. And then, you make it work in the marketplace, so it becomes a hit, it brings in the sales, and then you get an award like Tambuli, then, that's the ultimate joy, that you get.
Right. Back to Tambuli. Okay, I think you have some photos, in the last Tambuli Awards. Okay, so, okay, oh.